This is the Mindset Game podcast, and I'm your host, James Roberts. I'm a two-time Paralympian, online training and nutrition coach, and owner of James Robert Fitness. Why not check out some of my free content by going over to my website, fitamputee.co.uk/free-resources. Each week on the Mindset Game podcast, we bring you an inspirational athlete, message, or expert talking about human optimization to teach you how to change the perception of your mindset and to become 1% better. Make sure to share this with your friends on your Instagram story, on Twitter, on Facebook. They can find this episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere that they listen to podcasts by searching for Mindset Game Podcast.
I'm kind of just sitting down, just drinking some water, and out of the corner of my eye, just like peripheral vision, I see someone coming towards me, and I kind of just like turn a little bit, and I notice that it's him. He's coming towards me, and right away, when he gets close to me, he's like, "Hey, what's up, man?" He's like, "How you doing?" And I'm like, "What the heck is this guy talking to me for?" Right before we're about to go, and I remember like it hit me. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Pumping Iron with Arnold Schwarzenegger. You seen that movie or not?
I've seen some of it, yeah.
Basically, the whole movie, it goes into like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He has to go against Lou Ferrigno. That's like his main competitor, right? And in that whole movie, it's so beautiful because he's beating Lou Ferrigno with mental warfare. He's beating him so like psychological that Louis doesn't even know that he's going to lose, and he already is accepting that he's going to lose. Like,
without further ado, let's get into today's show. And on today's show, I've got Pete O'Neill. So welcome onto the show, Pete.
What's up, guys? It's good to be here.
So for Pete, sorry to interrupt you there. Keep going.
No worries, don't worry about it. No, I was just gonna say, it's always good talking with new people, because every time that you speak with a new person, you can always get something out, like new ideas, new different kind of mindset, and that's why I love doing this.
So for obviously how we connected on social media, be it from an Instagram point of view, for the listeners and obviously the viewers that are able to watch this that don't know much about you, can you kind of give a brief introduction to yourself and obviously your business?
Yeah, so basically, long story short about me is that I train this martial arts, which is called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's basically, for the people that don't know, a lot of people, every time that I say Jiu-Jitsu, some people are like, "Is that like karate?" And it's nothing like karate. It's nothing like other martial arts, because this one is all about the ground game. It's all about the submissions when you go into the ground, because when you get into a fight, any altercation, 90% of the fights are going to end up in the ground, right? And that's where Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that's what it's all about. It's going into the submission ground game and getting control, getting a dominant position, and kind of, instead of using brute force, punching, kicking, or anything, you use complete it's basically like a gentle art, right? And you hold the guy there, and you can really like I've gotten into a couple altercations in my life that I was defending someone, and the guy was like, let's say that I was outside of a bar, right? And we're outside of a bar, and one of my friends gets in a fight with someone, and I'm like trying to like stop the guys, and then they start like chasing me. So then instead of them like punching me, I go and take him to the ground, and I just put him in a position where they can't attack me, but I'm not attacking them. And that's why it's like a beautiful art in itself, because it's a controlled art. And I've been doing that for about 8 years now. And right now, this is like the most important part of my career right now, because I'm just competing and training. I'm not really teaching right now. Teaching will be later, but I'm just competing at all the major tournaments. And just like any sport, this sport, obviously most sports have like a season, right? Like football is like going to end. The Super Bowl is going to end here like January or something like that, right? Jiu-Jitsu kind of doesn't really have an off season, because there's tournaments all year around. But for the main international tournaments, there's 5 major tournaments, and they start actually next month in January. The first one is in Europe, and then there's going to be one in Los Angeles, one in Abu Dhabi, one in California, and then one in Brazil. And those are the 5 major tournaments. But after that, it's just tournaments all year round, and that's kind of what I do right now. And I have sponsors to like help me go and travel to different places, and I'm lucky enough to have that in my life to really just compete and really love what I do. And I noticed one thing, that I have a lot of people in my basically the people that I train with. I noticed that they can be so good in the training room, but then when they get to competition, they can't perform under the lights. And those are the things that make me so want to like study more of like the human mind of why that is, in a way, you know.
But Pete, does that come down to, are they freezing up in the moment, or is it a sense of some kind of anxiety building up? And how would I explain that? It's kind of two forms of the spectrum, because obviously anxiety is going to be one end, and you could freeze up for a number of different reasons.
Yeah, like I can't just say it's just one thing, because every person has something different within themselves, within their journey, right? Everyone is going through something else. And that's the beautiful thing, is to find that root of the problem. Not even the roots, like a lot of different things. Because I experience a lot of that, and I'm still always constantly fighting that. It's never like something that is just like, okay, I eliminate the problem, that's it, and everything is going to go fine and dandy. No, you're always going to have those times that I feel that, here's the thing, right? I feel that most people, what they do, at least the majority of the people, they all train hard, right? They all train hard. They put it in their time. They grind, as they say. They work out hard. They do all this physical labor, but yet they're not thinking hard, right? They're not working on that mental aspect of training. And that, in my opinion, that is just as important as the physical. If anything, more mental than physical, because you can have the biggest guy, the strongest guy, the just he's so aggressive, but yet if his mind is weak, it just cancels everything out. So there's a lot of factors that go into it, for sure.
I think you come up from a good perspective in terms of talking of it like that, Pete, because if I use myself as an example, I've had issues with anxiety since, what would be now, October time, and I've had to get myself retraining the brain to look more like I did as an athlete, which a lot of the habits you talk about, I took for granted. I kind of did them subconsciously, be it listening to music, using it as a relaxing tool, a motivational one, and obviously getting myself up into an arousal state to be able to perform. And I kind of went away from that over the last 12 months. And you're thinking that was something you did instinctively, and probably did from the age of, I think about 11 years old. So I've done it, in a sense, kind of a hypnosis, to be able to hardwire my mind to be able to operate in this state of, in a sense, probably obviously towards being successful. And you're thinking, gosh, I've done that without thinking, because I've got a purpose and clarity on where I want to get to, and obviously a very specific goal in mind as to where I want to attain. So obviously everything's shooting towards that, and everybody's got their favorite type of music genre, whatever it may be. So that's going to change in terms of how you use it as a tool. But I think how you said about, it doesn't matter how strong the person is from a physical standpoint. Everybody knows when you hit a certain point in exercise competition, the first thing that goes is obviously the mind, because you think, I'm hitting this superficial wall, so to speak, that doesn't exist. But it's your mind, it's actually your brain telling you, well, I'll say, use me as an example, James, we're getting in danger zone now. It's I'm going to switch everything off because it's the flight or fight response.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the body is perceiving that it's in danger of you're going to put it at risk of dying, which in sense, from a sporting sense, is, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but the likelihood of you pushing yourself to those extremes for most people isn't realistic. So if you can kind of push yourself through and attain what you're talking about, Pete, you're able to push through that. And I've been doing that for, what are we now? About just over 30 days now. And I can see the difference between where I was at the beginning of November from an anxiety point of view and overthinking things, putting things into the extreme, and to where I am now, thinking I'm starting to think more rationally again. This is not as serious as I was portraying it a few months ago. So I think I'm thinking a little bit more clearly. I think to a certain extent I've accepted that it is going to be a part of me, and I think that's a good thing for everybody to probably take note. Is it's no point pushing an emotion away, because you're going to have to deal with it at some point or other. I'd use probably this analogy is, it's better to accept it than let it define you. I'm accepting that it's a part of me, but I'm not going to let it control me. I'm going to control it to a certain extent, that it's not controlling every facet of my mind. And that is, like you were saying, it's training your mind to be able to do it. I'm not saying with meditation and mindfulness it's easy, but no stretch of the imagination am I saying that is the case. There's been days where you're thinking, well, what is this app actually telling me? And you start overthinking and that. But I think it's just thinking in it from this perspective. It's trusting that process, that it's little by little, it is going to get easier. And as opposed to, and I think this you could probably stretch across anything in society when it was result based, is everybody shooting for that result. They want it now, and don't really think about the process. Well, if you trust the process, you're committed, you are accountable to somebody else or yourself. Those are just two ideas to put to mind as to get you to that goal. You're more likely to be successful. Whereas if you're focusing solely on the result, some people might be able to do it, but the majority
of course. There's always that exception, right? But I think the reason why a lot of people, it's not the problems that they have, because every problem is for each person is gonna be something different. But the one major thing that I believe is the reason why a lot of people, like how I was saying, they can't respond to pressure, is because they're not able to really just go and have that space of like solitude and just like really like think about all the stuff that's going on, and really like articulate all the problems of what it is that they fear, what it is that that's going on, like that's making them have that anxiety in itself, right? Because for the majority of the people, we want to be with people always, right? We always want to be interacting with people. We're always like, if you're working, you're always going to be around people. You're going to be with your friends. If you're at home by yourself, you're going to want to talk to people. So therefore, if you're always around people, you're never really going to like know yourself, right? You're never going to really have that time to think different, because you're always just thinking like everyone else, because you're always with everyone else in a way. So I think when you separate yourself away from people, that's when you can think with more clarity. And that's when you can eliminate your own problems. And that's at least what I've done with me, with all my problems. Before I even started reading books, I would always just kind of, just like you're saying, you're talking to yourself. You have like another person that you kind of just like, and it's just another person right here. It's an invisible person, and you're talking to him. It's my bad person, and then that person is like, let's say for example, right? I'm training hard for this tournament. It's like a month away. I've been training really hard. Everything is going well, and now it's like I'm gonna compete in like 3 days, right? That whole physical side has already been like It's done. I don't have to do any more training. Now, everything comes down to mental, right? And from there, you're going to have these constant negative thoughts that are going to keep coming. And you're going to be like, oh, I don't know if you're going to win. What if you fly all the way to Abu Dhabi and you lose first round? What happens this? What you're going to, and then you start like having these things where it's like they're so strong. And then it's just like, you kind of like, it makes you feel bad. And from there, you have more negative thoughts and you keep focusing on all the problems instead of saying, whoa, hold on a second. Pete, you got this. Like, you've been training hard. You put in so much work. You're actually like, you're progressing so much every day. You're working on your mind. How like, don't be thinking like that. And it's kind of like, I'm like literally talking to myself. And it's like, some people like find it weird in a way because they're like, I'm just like, almost like if I'm doing anything, like a daily activity, and I'm like kind of talking to myself, I'm kind of like lip singing in a way where like, I'm just like I'm doing that. And people are like looking at me like, what the heck is he doing? And it's like, I'm like literally talking to myself. Because even if you're not talking to yourself, your thoughts, your thoughts are going to be talking to yourself already. So I might as well kind of just say it in a way of like, I'm always self-affirming myself. You know what I mean? And I think those are the steps that you always need to take to get to that next level with when it comes to that mindset of like believing in yourself, and not just saying like, oh, I believe just to believe, but actually like you're confronting those problems. You're like, oh, well, how come I'm feeling like this? Oh, because of this. And then from there, it's, it's just like, most people don't do that. They're too lazy to think like that.
But you talked about what if scenarios. Do you ever put strategies in place for you specifically to think like that, or do you try and defer from that because obviously there's negative connotations to that as well, or do you just stay on the fence of being more positive, as in trying to not thinking that way entirely?
It's a good question right there. Well, I had this problem that came up, right? What happened was, I like when you compete, you're not going to win all the tournaments, right? And I had this injury where I ended up like breaking my leg. So I was out for like a whole year, right? So when I came back, that was a huge mental thing that I had to really overcome. So it took me a while to really get the groove back. So I was on this like losing streak in a way where every single time that I would go to a tournament, I was confident that I was gonna perform well. But that same emotion of me losing the last one, it kept coming back to me. And I didn't realize that it kept coming back towards like right when the tournament was about to start. And it just kept coming back, and it kept telling me, like my mind kept telling me like, oh, like what are all your like loved ones gonna think of you if you lose again? Like, and it almost felt like it wasn't really me that cared. It was more like what other people cared in a way. And I started to see that problem. And so I was like, well, I don't know why I'm thinking like this, because my whole family loves me. Like, no matter if I win or lose, they're going to love me either way. So I started to I was like, man, I'm just going to let it go. Because then I would go into the competition and I really wouldn't give my 110%. Like I felt like I wasn't really going for it, as they say, like, when they say just go for it. And some people, it's like I held back. That's how I felt. Like I kept doing that. I kept holding back because I kept having that same emotion. And it was not until I started reading this book by Dr. Joe Dispenza. I don't know if you've heard of him. It's a book called You Are the Placebo, right? And it's a really good book. I really, for all the people that are listening, definitely get this book. It's one of the top 3 that I recommend to anyone. It's the same thing as you were talking about earlier, rewiring your brain, right? Because memories are strong emotions that you get through experience, right? So any type of strong emotion, like for example, every time that I would lose, I would have that same emotion, and it'd be so strong that memory would always come back. It always would come back. That same emotion would come back, and then no matter where I was at, I would have that same feeling of like, oh man, I was like losing, and it took me a lot of visualizing to like kick it out the door. And to me actually thinking like, how am I going to feel when I'm there? Like I'm gonna be feeling good. I'm gonna feel excited instead of like nervous and kind of just holding back in a way, right? Because nervousness and excitement are almost the same thing. They actually are the same thing. They're the same feeling, but they're just mixed up in a different little way of like a perception, right? Because like when you're excited, it's almost like, for example, like James, if I say, hey man, I got this gift for you, and I just give it to you, you're gonna take it, your heart's gonna start to beat, and you're gonna get excited. You're gonna be, oh, thanks for the gift. Like, and that's like an excitement type of thing, right? As opposed to if you're like somewhere kind of deserted and something happens, like you see this, like you get scared, right? Your heart is still gonna race, and you're gonna get really like nervous and scared. And it's the same. They're both the same feeling, but it's all a matter of how you perceive it, right? So every time that I was there, I would think of myself as like, this is excited, man. This is what I live for, baby. This is what makes me human. Like I'm excited for this. I want to feel this, right? So it's like you're tuning it out in a way. You're tuning it like a different tune, where it's like you're like trying to find the radio station, and it's all like it's like static. Like what do you call it? It's just like blurry, right? You can't hear it, and then you just get into that right frequency, and it's like clear, right? And that's one of the many ways that I started to like work on it. But there's so many different ones, and for each person, like I said, they have something all different. Like for the longest times for me, I remember like back a couple years ago, I wasn't, for the major tournaments, I wasn't able to. Every time that I would go to a tournament, I would get like really, really sick. And I was like, man, why do I keep getting so sick? Like I trained so hard for it, and like I feel like I can't even give it my all, because I'm like, I have fever over here, and like that causes me to have like less of a like condition. And from there, I started to like visualize myself like being well, like before the tournament, right? And those are like the little things that I had to overcome throughout my whole jiu-jitsu career. And now it's more about visualizing a lot. So that's why like I take time a lot of the day and really just go to myself, or just walking somewhere. I just get any type of headphones. I put on classical music, and I start thinking about what I want. You have to have something that it is that you want. You have to have that picture and have that purpose. That, like Eric Thomas says, you have to find that why. And you always have to continue motivate. You have to continue to like visualize, and just from there, even when the days that you don't want to go to like train or anything like that, they pull you towards that.
And Pete, you mentioned with affirmation. How do you do it more specifically? Because you talked about that you do it through, oh God, how would I even term this? Kind of, would you say gibbering? That's why people from the outside think, of what are you doing? But is it from a process you're also visualizing at the same time? Because a lot of people will associate it with, of people that have seen Cool Runnings would have, that's first time you'll see an affirmation live on screen. Is that how you're doing it? As per se, obviously, most people would think of it, you're talking into a mirror to be able, and obviously talking out loud.
Yeah. There's different ways, right? It depends kind of like what I'm really thinking at the moment, right? Like it's not really like I'm always doing the same affirmation like that in a way, right? I take it to where like I was listening to one of my girlfriend's lectures. She's my girlfriend. Her name is Delara. She studies psychology, and that's her major. And so she has a lot of lectures like that are like on like based on like self-esteem and all that kind of stuff. And it was talking about how people that have a higher self-esteem, usually when they like say for example they lose a competition, they lose anything, right away, those people with high self-esteem, they self-affirm right away, like immediately. Like they look at the good stuff. Like, okay, for example, like let's say I'm doing jiu-jitsu or anything, right? Like I lose, I look at the stuff like, what did I do right? Like what did I do this time that I haven't done before? That's a progress, that's a constant progression towards my growth, towards the next tournament in itself. Like, oh, I did this and I did that. And I'm pinpointing all the good stuff, right? And I'm self-affirming. I'm like, it's okay. Like I got it the next time. Like I'm confident in my abilities, in my own self-belief, my self-efficacy, that I'm like self-affirming right away, as opposed to a person that has low self-esteem. They're gonna dwell on it. They're gonna dwell on that defeat. They're gonna think of all the bad stuff that they did in a way. And it's good to look at the bad stuff because that makes you happy. You know, and for the high self-esteem, it makes you happy to have that because it's like heck yeah, I have a chink in my armor that I can fix right away. I'm confident enough that I can fix. I can study. I can analyze the next one. I'm not gonna do that same mistake. I'm glad this happened. And after the tournament, competition, or anything, the game, they feel better as opposed to the low self-esteem. They don't feel as good. They're not ready to keep going for the next challenge. They're just kind of like, they might sit there. I have a couple friends. They lose a tournament. They go sit in their room for about a week, and they just like are like super negative instead of like looking at the good stuff, and right away they want to go fix it, right? So that's the kind of stuff that I self-affirm in that way, in the way where like when I lose, I never really take it as a loss. I always take it as like another way to fix it for the next time, right? So that's like one of the ways, but there's many different ways, but that's just one example.
But you said that, Pete, in terms of when your friends lose a tournament, they kind of hide away. But that's the victim mentality. I'm not saying they're going out and blaming the referee, putting the blame on other people as to why they didn't win, but that's probably a lot of people resonate with that. You're generally in that mindset, well, the root cause as to why I didn't win, I wasn't successful in this venture is because of somebody else. Whereas when you talk of that mindset on the flip side, you're going to look at the positives as to where you've improved, but you will look at the negatives probably more positively as to, okay, it wasn't my day. The other competitors were better. I accept that. I need to go away and improve on this, that, or the other.
I need to go immediately. That's the thing. Immediately. That's the difference. Immediately. The person, high self-esteem, immediately. The person with low self-esteem, they go and they feel bad. Just like you said, they feel that victim mentality. They go hide away, and they just dwell on it, and it's just a constant, like, anything that's going to make them feel bad. They're probably going to eat something bad. They're going to do all these things that is not positive on the good side, the bright side of life in itself. And that's the whole thing, is most people get that mixed up. When I lose, I never, like, I used to be the type of person that when I would lose, I would, like, to be honest, I would like cry and stuff, because I would like I would hate it. I'd be like, oh, and I would like kind of yell. But as I started to really work on myself, right, I started to be more calm. I really started to think with more clarity as I was by myself. I started to think of the good things, and I was already doing that. And then when I was always doing that, right? And then when I like started to like really get into the psychology, some of the stuff that is presented by, like, either if I read books or if I go on YouTube videos or if I like look at my girlfriend's lectures, and then like they talk about that, I was like, holy crap, I was doing that this whole time. It's like explaining the theory, and I was like, wow, this is so cool.
But I think it's, you get disillusioned, and I think myself included, over the last 12 months, you stop to do the things that were successful. And I think I was working with somebody more recently in business. He was talking about it from, we could say, from a performance standpoint for this argument. You are going to have, obviously, with success, you're going to have a curve that's going upwards in that way, but your memory is going the opposite way. So it's a good thing when people talk about journaling, writing things down as to what were the steps you were to become successful, because when you get to the end of the result, you kind of lose sight of, well, how did I get there? And if you journal it along the way, okay, I did this. I can, okay, so the goalpost has shifted, so to speak. If you become successful, so you will reflect on what the things you did and go again, but you've seen the steps, that, as opposed to thinking, oh, what did I do to get here? And kind of go on the you could say that the not victim mentality, but kind of think, well, I don't know. I think it probably helps to have somebody to be accountable for, because they're going to say, well, James, you did this.
No, for sure. Like
You're coming off the
constructive
boil
criticism.
here a little. You're coming
Yeah.
off the boil here a little bit. You're kind of deviating from the path, so to speak, and say, well, if you carry on this, you're going to deviate way off the path, and you're going to become, well, I'm not saying not successful, but it's going to take you longer to get to the result or the goal you have in mind. So I think it's definitely looking at things from that perspective.
That's true. And I think I could be a little more clear with that. In a way, it's like, for example, even if you win or you lose, right? You look at the stuff that you did right, and you look at the stuff that you did wrong. You write all that stuff down because you're always watching tape, right? Tape is a huge part of the mental game as well, because it makes you more confident in a way of like, oh, you're not just saying, oh, I can win next time. Like you're like almost like that fake it till you make it. No, it's like with like a science, right? You're like, okay, this is why I did this, that. Okay, I'm writing all this down. And then from there, you go in the training room, you fix it. You get the guy to help you out to do that same position where you couldn't execute it in the competition. You start to execute it with muscle repetition. You keep going. It's kind of like you're shooting. You're playing basketball and you have a bad 3-pointer, right? You work on that 3-pointer every day. You do it from different ways. From there, you get the confidence. You get that confidence that you see that weakness that you're making it your strength, right? But not just that. In a way, it's like I also look at it like, how did I feel going in there in that tournament? Like, how was my mindset going in there? I'm not just going in there and just thinking like, how was my technique in itself? But how was my mindset going in there? What negative thoughts did I have there that I can write down, just like you said, right? And write something else down, like a cause and effect, like articulate the problem and fix the problem right there in itself, right? And you can do that in itself. And I think that's another thing where people don't look at that. They're just studying the match in itself, but they're not studying themselves inside of like what was going on with them. And that's from there they can take it on as the next one to like visualize of like if sometimes if you feel like you're gonna throw up right before a match, you go into it where you're visualizing yourself like you're feeling really good, like you're feeling like yes, like heck yes, like it's almost like you haven't eaten for like 7 days and you see this huge buffet, you're like that excited, like you get like that, right? And so then you can, next time when you go in the tournament, if you visualize it like that, you're manifesting it. So when you get into there, you go into that like, yeah, this is good, right? So all those things add up to like that confidence of really like self-affirming too, but really just knowing how to like train with a purpose instead of just training recklessly. Like you're just like, a lot of people train with no purpose, so they're competing with no purpose, meaning they don't have a strategy. You have to have a system. Just like in basketball, you have to have systems of the way that you're going, or football, anything like that. You have to have a system that you can always be looking. You can always test the hypothesis. You can always test the calculations. And from there, same thing with the mind, right? You can do mind and body. That's so powerful right there in itself.
And I did like the analogy you used there, Pete, because with the visualization and you going back and fine tuning the technique, writing down where the pros and cons went from a competitive standpoint, is then because you've done the groundwork, so to speak, and obviously no pun intended, you're able to then you get good at this from a mental perspective. You can then thus visualize it at rest. You're able to well have a plan A, plan C, and you're able to visualize, well, if I did this, what would be the outcome? What if I did this? You when it actually happens and surfaces in a real life situation, you've already lived.
It's already there, yeah.
You've already lived through it through your mind. So when it actually materializes in real life, well, I've already done this before. Okay, not physically, but I think you would probably go very much with a martial art. You would probably think, well, I visualized this in my head. Let me get the muscle memory in a training environment. And then obviously when it comes down to the competition, I've seen it in my head. I've practiced it. I'm ready to go when it comes down to crunch time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you're also like you're also feeling that sense of like your mom telling you, oh my God, like like you did so good, congratulations, or your girlfriend like telling you, maybe you're out of town, I'm out of town or something, out of state, and I called her, and like I already visualized myself calling her and telling her that I ended up winning, things like that, right? And the more that you do it, the more that you get into that set where you're going into the uncomfortable state of like, it might be too much effort into actual thinking about all that stuff, is the more that it's going to be more comfortable to you when you're in that event itself. I don't know. Did that make sense right there?
To me,
Do you
yeah,
understand?
because
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's what people perceive now, and I'm going to generalize this sentiment now, is they think they are scared of the here and now, but really you are scared of the future. That's one thing you cannot control. So obviously we talk of it, and somebody I listening to quite recently, he put it from a perspective: depression lives in the past, anxiety lives in the future. So there's no point.
Yeah.
You can't change the past. That's done. As
Yeah.
we're speaking, the past is happening.
You can always take the good stuff from the past, though. You can always take like the past victories of how you felt, and use that emotion, that memory, to go back into the future, though. That's the things that you can do, though. That's a huge thing right there. But see, most people do the opposite. They do the negative things, and then they go into the future, and then see, that's why they're getting the same results over and over and over again, same feeling over and over again, right? That's why you have to rewire your brain. You have to visualize yourself. And that takes everything. That takes the days that you have by yourself to actually do it, man. To really say, hey, this is the time in my schedule right now. I know it's a busy Tuesday. I know it's a busy Wednesday or whatever, right? Whatever day it is. But I'm gonna put that specific time in that day that I'm gonna do that, right? So you have time every day, just like you're working out. You're working out that mental side, right?
Well, it's living in the here and now, because if you work on the present, you're putting in the work for the future. I think that's probably people lose sight of that. You kind of dwell, as you put it, on the past. It's done. Okay, like it's good to take the stuff. That's probably where you will get excited when things did go right. You remember those things and they bring you joy, happiness. Those things will bring you different emotions. You think of the negative things. Well, how do you feel? You were to put them from a side by side perspective. Well, what do you want to feel more on a day-to-day basis? Well, most people I would hope, would say happiness and joy. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, for them to be isolating themselves from what is sensed as a community, be it from a social media perspective, your family, friends that surround you more closely. But you don't. We're not wired like that to be people in solitary and things like that, because essentially you go crazy. But I think to kind of look at it from how you could change that is, like you say, it's taking that time away from yourself. It's not like we're talking about solitary. It's finding that, in the sense, me time. It doesn't have to be meditation. It doesn't have to be reflection. It's finding what you enjoy first and foremost. So that's probably the easiest tool to implement first. You've got an anchor point to start with, as something to work from, and then look to build on from it. Obviously, you talked about having that time to yourself, or mindfulness, meditation. Well, I think people blow it out of proportion. Oh, it's difficult. There's apps out there. Gosh, well, I started at 3 minutes of meditation a day. Okay, I thought that was a realistic goal to be able to implement. It's 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. A lot of people, when they have something new, for example, like New Year's is coming up, right? And all these people are like, well, I'm gonna have this New Year's resolution. They go from 0 to 100 so fast. Like, they put this huge goal that's so unattainable, and it's so hard to really do, right? And every single day, right? Like, if you're gonna have a goal, you're gonna try to do it every single day, right? Now, just like you were doing it for like 3, 4, 5 minutes, whatever, every single day. It's not hard, but just like Jim Rohn says, what is easy to do is not easy to do. Every single day, it there's those days that you're really busy and like life caught up with you, and you're like, well, I can just settle these 5 minutes for tomorrow. Like I don't have time right now for that, and I'll just do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow becomes a week becomes months, and then you don't do it, and then you feel more bad about yourself because you weren't accountable for that goal. So most people have huge goals right away. You have to start small first, and you have to build from there, like more and more and more. Because like for me, like I didn't want to like sometimes I was too lazy to like really like I wanted to visualize or like just like do all that stuff, like, oh, it's the time to do now. I almost thought of it like as a chore in a way, right? And it's just like, no, man, you have to do it every single day. Like even when I learned this language, Portuguese, right? I told myself when I was out for 1 year, I told myself I wanted to learn a new language. So every day, just like you, I told myself I was gonna study this and work on it for 10 minutes a day, every day. Now I thought it was easy. The first 2 weeks, I killed it. Towards like a month and 2 months and 3 months, it was like one of the hardest things that I've ever done. But from there, after a year, I was able to speak Portuguese because I could speak Spanish. So it's kind of similar, right? But I was from there just that what was easy to do is not easy to do. I was able to implement it every day, and from there, I took on a new language right there, right?
But I think the mindset you need to have, Pete, with that is, and I think maybe when I came to terms with dealing where I was at and taking ownership of some of the problems, the majority of where I'd put myself was on me. A good place to be able to move forward. And then you think I kind of get back to the mindset that I used to have as an elite athlete. It's like, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? What if I try this? I may not like it. I may love it. Let's put it into place and kind of go with, I've got nothing to lose by implementing this. It's a tool. I would say meditation more specifically, maybe not. And I think it's changing the wording or how you speak to yourself as, like you mentioned, I can do it tomorrow. I'll do it later. No, you won't, because these kind of words that you're using, you're putting it in the future tense. Okay, you're now putting it in that bracket with the anxiety that you're fearful of. Oh, so I won't do it because it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. Let's shy away from it. Whereas if you put it as a must, and you put it probably in your schedule and things like that, which is very easy to do nowadays because everybody's got applications.
It's a priority to you.
It's a priority to you. It is in my phone to go to, well, as we speaking today, Pilates. It's in there, but now it is a habit. I must do it. I do it for my overall well-being. I enjoy it. So it's kind of a reminder, but I'll
you
go
do Pilates?
do it anyway. Yeah.
Oh, nice, man. My girlfriend, she's doing it like from the home, but she wants to take like classes and stuff. So how did you describe it, like your feeling when you go there and stuff?
I think it depends. It's gonna test you physically, whereas I think people will think, oh, Pilates, it's gonna be easy because it's body weight, but it's thinking, no, it's not. It's not easy. Physically, what was pace of, say, about 2 months. I've got a six-pack again. I haven't had a six-pack in 10 years.
Wow.
So that puts it in perspective. I think it's making me utilize that mind-body connection, because the instructor will say to me, well, as an athlete, you know how to engage your core. Like, yes, but was I doing it day to day, be it in the gym, walking around before I started? Probably not. So I think it rewires you from that mental perspective to be able to be aware of what you're doing with that particular muscle, and that was the major one, isn't it? Because it functions with everything. You're walking, you're sitting down. It'll put you in a better posture, so you're putting less load on your spine. So I would say to anybody, listen, this, give it a try. You may not like it. You may be in the same position as me and love it.
That's what you were talking about, though. Sorry to cut you off. My bad. That's what you were talking about, though. Like, if you give it a chance, right? You give something that's new. You're open to the idea of trying something new, right? For example, Pilates, right? And you're like, okay, I'm gonna do it at least for like, I'm not gonna start a whole year. I'm not gonna just go to somewhere I've never done it before and just sign a 1-year contract, right? No. You're like, okay, I want to do like a 1 week, 2 week free pass, and I want to see how, or like a, like a Groupon or something. You go there and you're like, I'm gonna try this out 1 week or 2 weeks. I want to see if like if I like it, if it like really stays with me. And from there, you see if every day that you're going, you see if you like it or not. If it's something that you hate, you despise going, you're dwelling on just the idea of going, then from just cancel it out, do something new, find something new that it is. But be open to the idea of trying something new. And from there, if you actually do like it, make it a priority. Make it a priority to do it every day. Then that's where it comes to, you do it every day. And then if you do it every day, sometimes you're going to be like, oh, I shouldn't do it. That's where it's like, well, what is my priority right now? Like, what, like in my life, and health is a huge one, right?
And longevity. And I'll put it into perspective for people. I say I've got a 6-pack, but that wasn't a priority as to why I did it. I think, and probably people, I haven't put it on social media that I've got a good physique again now, because I don't put it as a priority. It's not a big deal for me specifically. I want to actually put more weight back on because of the anxiety stripped away a little bit of the muscle mass, and I think the fat. So I think because I don't live in a warm climate, because it's the winter now, it would be nice to get more weight on.
You got the heater turned on.
I think with people be perplexed by that. Why do you want to put weight on, James? Most people, and people have said to me more recently, oh, you've lost a lot of weight. Well, how did you do it? It's like, oh, I had anxiety. And people say, oh, I'd like that as well. No, you don't. Okay, I can see where you're coming from the weight loss perspective. But I probably have lost weight because I've started to eat more in the right way as well, so it's probably a little bit of both. But to put that into context, it's like, well, that's not the aesthetical perception people will have of me. Oh, he's ripped, so he must be doing a lot of work. It's like, well, yeah, it's hard work, but I'm willing to put the awareness into what I'm doing, the mind-body connection. I'm being aware as when I'm engaging my core and when I'm not. So I know it's switched on, I'm engaging it. So I think when it's not switched on, you can tell. And I virtually don't have to engage it when I'm walking. So it's actually functioning as properly day to day. So I'm probably utilizing the core just walking around. So I think from that perspective, I did it more for my mental well-being as to, well, okay, let's try something different, as you said, Pete, to try and find, well, okay, where can I find, in a sense, that inner peace, somewhere that I can relax, I'm able to unwind, get out those, well, demon emotions that I might have had throughout the day. It works as that tool. You're focusing on your breathing. So I think you were in a sense of relax, and you're exercising. So from one perspective, it's probably the other side of the spectrum from the resistance training, because most people would probably subconsciously not think that they're tense when they're doing resistance training, but you're shifting more so for probably the guys, maybe people CrossFit for the ladies, where you're lifting some crazy weights. So you're going to have some tension there for the muscles to be able to produce that force. Whereas with Pilates, you don't really associate it as a form of resistance training, but in essence it is, because you working on that chain from your shoulders to your waist. Whereas I think that's where most people, be it to no lack of their own, coming down to experience and knowledge, don't know either how to engage it, or a little bit off the boil as to, well, I'm only training, I don't know, my chest today, so I don't really need to switch this muscle on. Well, if you're able to utilize that, you're probably going to, I'm going to generalize and say the statement, you're probably going to at least get 1% gain from your performance just by doing something as simple as that, and being able to be at one with those techniques. So be it, you will know the vacuum technique to be able to engage the core before you do anything. But of that, I think Pilates is one way of doing it, to be able to do it. And they'll teach you those methods. Well, you need to focus on this. You'll then think of, okay, I need to take a mental note of this before I engage something. And then you can kind of use it as a chain reaction of firing that muscle, bang, and get better and be able to shift more weight as a result.
Yeah, I like that. And one thing I wanted to talk about, I wanted to tell you a quick little story about the mindset, right? About how I've out of all of my competitions, right, and all the matches that I've ever had, there's one match that was my favorite that I've ever done, and I want to just tell you really quick. So basically, I flew from Los Angeles to Portugal in Europe, right? I'm in Portugal, and my first round, I go against this guy who's like from Russia. And he's this big guy, this big intimidating looking guy that's just like, he's one of those guys that like just looks really scary. And he's got like this little like dread that's hanging from the back of his like head or whatever, right? So we go in the first match, right? And right away he starts just being super aggressive, and I'm like kind of defending more in a way, right? When we're in the ground, and I'm on the bottom, and I'm trying to like get into my position, and he's being super aggressive, and I put him into this position where it's called the omoplata. It's a shoulder lock position, right? And I have him by both of my legs are wrapped up around his arm, and he starts to lift me up, and he starts to just be like, he starts to yell. He's like, ah. And I'm like, oh shoot, this guy's like yelling, like what the heck? And like I lose the position, and then right away he starts just like going left and right, starts just trying to pass my guard or whatever. And eventually I get to my position, and I end up putting him in a triangle submission, triangle choke with my legs. So I get both of my legs and I get him in between his neck and his arm, right? And I put him to sleep, right? He doesn't tap, so I put him to sleep, and the ref stops, and he's just unconscious, right? So the ref wakes him up, whatever. I end up winning, and let's fast forward that to 7-8 months later. We're in Los Angeles now, right? And another tournament, right? I win my division, and after you win the division, usually you do the open class, which everyone can do the open class. Like the open class is you take the top 3 guys of every division, starting from the smallest division to the biggest division, which is ultra heavy, right? And they all go into the open class. So I started to see the people that are going to be in the open class, right? And I'm looking at everybody, and out of the corner of my eye, I see that same guy, that same hair, that same face. I'm like, oh shoot, like he's here. Wow, he traveled all the way from Russia for here. That's like just me thinking that. I'm not like fucking, and I'm thinking that. I'm like, oh okay, well, right away I start self-affirming myself. Okay, let's do it. Okay, I'm ready for it this time. Like I'm ready. I know that he's gonna come out aggressive. So right away I'm like, okay, let's do this. And I realized that we're on opposite brackets, right? He's on this side and I'm on this side. We were going through people, and we get to the semifinals. Now I'm going against a guy from Brazil, and he's going against one of my teammates who's on the opposite bracket, and he ends up beating my teammate, and is watching me go against the Brazilian guy to see if I'm gonna make it to the finals, right? So I ended up beating the Brazilian guy like kind of by points. I don't end up like choking him or nothing, but I end up making it to the finals, right? So we're now in the finals, but I ended up beating him really bad. And now when we're in the finals, I'm kind of just sitting down, just drinking some water, and out of the corner of my eye, just like peripheral vision, I see someone coming towards me, and I kind of just like turn a little bit, and I notice that it's him. He's coming towards me, and right away, when he gets close to me, he's like, "Hey, what's up, man?" He's like, "How you doing?" And I'm like, "What the heck is this guy talking to me for?" Right before we're about to go, and I remember like it hit me. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Pumping Iron with Arnold Schwarzenegger. You seen that movie or not?
I've seen some of it,
Well,
yeah.
basically the whole movie it goes into like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He has to go against Lou Ferrigno. That's like his main competitor, right? And in that whole movie, the it's so beautiful because he's beating Lou Ferrigno with mental warfare. He's beating him so like psychological that Louis doesn't even know that he's gonna lose, and he already is accepting that he's gonna lose. Like they travel all the way from America to South Africa for the Mr. Olympia that's held there, right? They're there for 1 week. The last day, the day of the competition, they're there eating breakfast. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger, Lou Ferrigno, Lou Ferrigno's dad, and his mom, right? And they invite Arnold there. He's already a 5-time Mr. Olympia guy, and he's like talking. Arnold is just talking, and he's kind of just being very smart and cunning. And he's telling Lou and his whole family, he's like, "I called my mother and I told her that I already won." And they're all like about to do the competition, and Lou is like, you can see in his face that he's just defeated, like mentally defeated right there. Like Lou, like Arnold's like, "I told her I won." He's like, "Can you believe 6-time Mr. Olympia?" I like he's like, ah. and then Louis, and then he's not even 6-time, he's 5-time. But he's already like saying it that he's like he already won. He's like 6-time. Can you believe it? He's like, Lou, it's okay if you didn't win this time. It's you're 3-time this, but what the hell? You never got Mr. Olympia, but you're 3-time Mr. something, right? And like Louis is just like he doesn't know what to say, and then Louis' dad is like, "Arnold, you like found the fountain of youth," and Arnold is just like literally kind of just completely destroying him, kind of like how Conor McGregor beat Jose Aldo, and he beat a lot of the guys, right? He beat him through all mental warfare. So right away, going back to the story where this guy comes at me and he's talking to me and he's like, "How you doing, man?" I'm like, I took it as a advantage to me thinking this guy's scared. He's already like kind of has that feeling of he's intimidated of going into the match, and he wants to kind of be friends with me. So I make it to where I'm like, "I'm doing pretty good, man. What about yourself?" And kind of just to see a little bit more intel of what he has to say. So then he says, "Man," he's like, "I'm kind of tired. I cut 15 pounds yesterday." And I'm like, "Oh, really?" He's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "It's okay, man. Don't worry about it, man. I feel really good. And I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to take it easy on you today." And I like pat him on the, I like kind of just like, kind of like pat him on the shoulder. And I said, "Don't worry. It's going to be fun." And right there in itself, he's just looking at me with this just like, I see this grown man just defeated right before my eyes. And it's so crazy. And he's like, he asked me if I'm going to do like a tournament like the next day or something. It's like a different tournament. And I'm like, "No, I'm not going to do it." He's like, "Well, I'm going to get ready for that one." And I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, "You can have this one." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, you can have it, and you can advance." So he tells me right there that he doesn't want to fight, that he gives me the gold medal. So like when we go to the refs, he's going to be like, "I can't participate." So that's what happened. I end up, even without fighting him, I end up taking the gold, and we take the podium picture, whatever. And I couldn't believe it. I was such in shock that this man got defeated of what the words that I was saying, because he didn't practice like working on his mind or like sharpening like something that happened in the past. He was letting the past defeat him before anything ever happened. So that's why I always tell people about the story. Like that was like my favorite thing, because we never even fought or anything, right? That's like, what is that Sun Tzu said? He says like the greatest victory is the one that you don't even fight in, right? So, just like how he was defeated, I have lost to guys that I end up like having to fight again, and I constantly like going back to the visualization. You can't just go into a tournament, lose to a guy, and you can like right away you start self-affirming, right? But you take it further. You just like you were saying, you go into the positions where you couldn't execute, and you visualize yourself executing them, right? You're doing all these moves, and you constantly are visualizing yourself beating him in every single different way possible, every scenario, right? So then the next time that you go against someone, you're confident enough that you can beat him, not just by your belief, but like in a way of visualizing in scientific way, right? And I think that's another big one, is a lot of people when you compete against someone and they beat you, it takes a lot of mental fortitude and a lot of mental effort to really beat that guy again, because if that guy beats you 2 times, man, it's like in your heart that you're like, fuck, man, I don't know if I can do it this time. He's already beaten me twice. And that's why it takes a lot of effort those are like my favorite kind of victories, of when someone beats me. Someone beat me 2016, right? 2018, this year in Vegas, it was like July, right? Second fight in Vegas, I have to go against this guy that like I never look at the brackets, because I never want to like start focusing on people's like, oh, like that guy's there, like, oh shoot, I need to go to this weight division, I think of it like they're the ones that need to fear me, right? Like I'm my own biggest obstacle, so therefore I don't care about anything. So I never look. So like when I went to Vegas and it's my second match, I don't know who I'm fighting, and I see that guy, and it's that same guy that beat me 2016 at this other tournament, and I'm like, oh shoot, it's this guy again. And right away I start self-affirming myself, like 2 years have passed. I can beat this guy. I'm better than this guy. I know in 2 years I progressed much more than him. Definitely my mindset, all of this. And I start to like go into that space, like I'm going to fucking get him, right? So then we go into the match. And before we go to the match, he's just constantly the whole tournament, he's just eyeing me the whole time. And it's like looking at me like I'm going to fuck you up, man. Like that the whole time. And I'm just like, I look at him like, oh, yeah, like not like doing it back. I'm just like, okay, like let's do it. Like I'm ready. I'm not gonna back away from this challenge, right? That's another thing. High self-esteem. You don't back out from rough challenges. You take those challenges as excitement. I went into there excited. We went there, had the match in itself. I felt like after the match ended, which I ended up winning, I held back a lot. And I was like, after the match, like I beat him, but it was just like by a couple points. And I was like, man, I could beat this guy, man. I could beat him even more. Like, I don't know what I was even thinking. I can like actually go for it more. So we ended up going in the absolute again, first round in the absolute, right? Because I ended up winning my division. And same thing. He's not as before the competition started, he was looking at me like what? Like I've already beat you before. After I beat him, he wasn't really looking at me anymore like that. He was kind of like, I could kind of see his confidence just go down a little bit, right? And he was kind of like not really looking at me, just kind of like, okay, I'm just gonna fight hard and hopefully I win. But with me, I was like, I could tap this guy, man. I'm not gonna hold back. I'm actually gonna go for it. So we ended up going, and I put him in this position again. Once again, I put him in the omoplata position. That's like one of my favorite positions, right? And it's a shoulder submission, right? I put him in a shoulder submission, and I end up tapping him. And after I end up tapping him, I see this guy, his confidence goes from all the way to the roof to just straight down. And I know in my heart and soul that anytime that we ever have to fight again, that I have him right here because of all that in itself, right? I was able to work on myself of all the negative thoughts. I was able just to like have a bat. All these negative thoughts are coming. I'm just like, boom! And it just goes out the roof. And I'm just focused on the mission. And those are my favorite kind of victories, or the victories that I've lost before, and I'm able to like develop my mind, work on myself, visualize, and really just beat people through mental, because I realize it's all mental now.
And my penultimate question to you, Pete, before we wrap up the episode, if people wanted to change their perception of their mindset, how, in your opinion, would they go about doing that? And I think you might have touched on a few points that you're going to give.
Yeah. It's like this, right? It's like I say, working on your mind is like showering, right? Like taking a shower. If you want to smell good, if you don't want to smell like crap, it's a constant, every single day you're showering, right? To smell good. It's the same thing for working your mind. It's a daily operation. You always have to use that. You always have to constantly get motivated. You always have to look at the picture, and you have to work on it, man. You have to read books. There's so many different books by people of all sorts of professions. You have to study. You have to read autobiographies by great people who've done it, who can like. You can gather ideas. You can they share new things about themselves, and it's a constant. You're like constantly seeking out these things. You're constantly hanging out around with people that are good, that can be beneficial to you. If you have people that are toxic, who are people that are trying to bring you down, who are envious, or who are just negative in general, you can't just cut them, right? Like everyone says, just cut them out of your life. You have to just drastically, slowly have to just not really like be there anymore. Like just, obviously they're not going to go out of your life, but you just try to hang around with more people. You like, just like you said, you go to Pilates, right? And you see the people that you're there. It's a whole new environment, new set of people. You see the people that you like. You want to like kind of hang around with them, maybe grab a drink after or whatever, and grab some coffee. And you start to talk to more people. So it's always hanging around with people like that, and always seeking out new things. You know, like if it's YouTube video, if it's seminars, if it's personal development seminars, if it's reading, if it's podcasts, if it's anything you can do just to keep working on your mind. That's one of the biggest things that I always tell people is you have to constantly be seeking out, just like you're showering every day. You have to constantly be doing that.
My final question to you before we wrap up the episode, if you had to summarize what we've been speaking about today into one sentence for people to take away, what would that be?
Yeah. Okay. So one sentence, right? And I'm going to, and the final sentence that I'm going to say is, the mind is everything. The only reason why we have a body is to carry our brain, because without our brain, the body is nothing.
I think that's a great one to finish on, Pete. So once again, thanks for coming on the Mindset Game podcast.
So it's a great pleasure to be here, man. I had a great time talking to you.
Oh, the pleasure's been all mine. If you like this episode, please do share it with your friends, and do let Pete and I know what you thought of the episode by tagging us over on Instagram at Pete O'Neill, so PETEONEAL, and at James O. Roberts 11 on Twitter and Facebook. And again, do check out my free content at fitamputee.co.uk/free-resources. Make sure to check that out. The link will be in the description. You can find all the show notes at mindsetgame.libsyn.com under the category Sports. Once again, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you again next time for another episode of the Mindset Game podcast.